All right, welcome back, everyone, to our study of Esther. We are past the halfway point, which means the plot has set up, the board game has been, or the game of chess has been arranged, and now we're going to start seeing the story unravel. And this is when it gets really fun because, like I've mentioned over and over again, this story has a lot of elements that feel very modern. It's not just a straightforward tale. There's irony, there is deceit, there's all these things, and we have a situation that's all set up, and now we get to see how at least one piece starts to play out. But before we get to that, once again, let's refresh what happened last week. So what was going on last week that sets up this week? Who were the main players last time and what was the plan?
Were we on 5 last week or 6?
Five.
5,
Five.
okay. All right.
So there's two main parts to last week's story.
Okay.
Do you all remember?
Yeah, Haman decides he's got to get rid of Mordecai,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
his wife or somebody, the family suggests, well, why don't they build a gallows and hang him? Everybody thinks that's just peachy.
Yep.
Well, and Esther is in good standing with her husband, and she invites the king and Haman to come for dinner.
Right. So those are the two elements. Or did I see someone getting ready to talk? Yep. So we have the first of Esther's banquet because 2 weeks ago, Esther appeared in front of the king, and the king offered her anything up to half his kingdom, and she's like, "Will you come to dinner with me and bring your buddy?" And so last week we had the banquet, and it was lavish, and the king and Haman were drinking, and then the king asked once again, it's like, "Okay, sweetheart, what do you want? I know you're asking for something." And she asked him to a second dinner. And Haman goes home thinking he's hot stuff, that, oh, look, I am invited to the dinner with just the king and queen. I am second to only them. Even the queen dotes on me, and he has his own little dinner party with his own guests and his own with his wife. And he says it means nothing as long as Mordecai does not bow to him on the way home. And so that's when his wife says, "Why don't we just kill him? Build a gallows, petition the king, and have the king have this guy executed." So they have built the gallows, and then the assumption is from building the 75-foot gallows, which is excessive. Like that. Anyway, 75-foot gallows. Haman then goes to petition the king to kill Mordecai. And that is where our story starts today, is with the king, and we hear that the king cannot sleep. Yeah, Gretchen.
I just realized that this chapter 5, in a way, is like kind of like Jezebel saying, "Well, if you want that vineyard, you just take it." And this is what Zeresh says, you want him, just kill him.
That is an excellent observation, and I do not doubt that there is kind of a cultural line being drawn. So if this woman is acting like Jezebel, so what are other things we can expect? Like, what other personality traits can be imported from Jezebel onto Zeresh?
A lot of makeup. But
Well, she's pretty bloodthirsty. She doesn't hesitate to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot, I didn't. Okay.
It would almost seem that Haman and Zeresh are a good match for their ambition. Whereas Ahab was kind of a wet noodle of like, oh, I'm gonna go cry in my bed because I don't get a vegetable garden. Jezebel
Yeah.
was the powerhouse, but here it seems like they are more evenly matched, that they are equally ambitious and in ways equally cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh no, you're fine.
The king not sleeping, and I'm thinking, what is it that I grab when I can't sleep? I like
Mhm.
that. The records, but he didn't read them.
No.
No,
You know,
someone else.
Well,
I
if you're
can't
the
sleep.
king, you.
Somebody else can't sleep either. They're going to have to stay awake and read to me.
Well, if you're the king,
Boring.
you get somebody to read them to you.
Yeah,
You don't have to
right.
read them yourself.
I love. Oh yeah, Clay.
I was just going to say, but the whole purpose of that, no matter who reads it, is to move the story forward to get us to, oh, look at this that I seem to have missed.
Mhm.
You know, that happened with, oh, this was Mordecai.
Mhm.
So it's just, it's a device to move it forward. But yeah, that's a good point. He didn't read it himself.
So like there's two ends of this that I love about the story is on one end, yeah, this is entirely a literary device. This is because we've been told a few chapters ago that Mordecai saved the king, and I made a point, put it in your back pocket, nothing happens. Because the very next chapter is when Haman gets elevated and he gets all the fancy stuff and he's celebrated and nothing happens with Mordecai. That's important because it comes back now.
Mhm.
But there's something that feels so human about just not being able to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not grabbing for like the epic of Gilgamesh and like a story. No, the king is like, can you read me something boring? Can you bore me to sleep? And I love how human that feels because it's
Yeah.
one of those that sometimes I do this myself when I can't sleep. Sometimes I turn on something that like it's talking, but I want to tune it out, but it's enough to get my brain to stop thinking so I can go back to sleep.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, so reading through the annals of the king, I don't know if you just like start from the last time he had insomnia. Oh, by the way, my notes are saying that the insomnia is providential, and in the longer version, the Greek version that has additions, the Greek version attributes his insomnia to God's actions in the world. That God kept him up at night and gave him insomnia.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and you can see a little bit of like how like you could read that into the story in the same way that like how God kind of interferes with the life of Pharaoh, God's interfering with the life of the Persian king here. But it's not specifically attributed to God in the Hebrew version, but some people read that into it. At any rate, yeah, Gary?
Well, that makes sense that God kept them awake, and I think God also selected the book that was going to be read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just open up the records and start reading and we'll see what happens. But a light bulb goes off and he's like, "Wait, I never like what happened to Mordecai?" Um, and his servant says nothing was done. And so it's at this point where once again irony of irony comes forward, dramatic tension. Evidently, Haman isn't sleeping tonight either, because he has just finished building the gallows and runs straight to the king's court so he can get the king right as he wakes up. And it's the middle of the night, and the king's like, "Hey, someone's in the court. Can you go get one of my like courtiers, whoever?" And in walks Haman, and the king asks him the question, what shall be done with a man whom the king wishes to honor? Yeah, Clay?
Well, I just wanted to back up a minute because here's the king saying what honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai, and now here's Haman coming in to speak to the king about having Mordecai hanged on the gallows. I mean, it's like, whoa, this is a great story. I mean, the way it's moving along is really neat. So anyway, I was backing up to that.
Yeah.
But with Haman, he just automatically assumes I'm the guy that's going to be honored today.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
wow.
But why does the king ask Haman, what should we do with a man who has done something to help me? He doesn't say, hey, what, did we ever do anything to help Mordecai? You know,
It's like a riddle.
yeah, so you wonder what's the king's reason? Why does he post it in a generic fashion rather than asking specifically about Mordecai?
Yeah, it's a little mean.
So that Haman can assume it's himself. Again, it's a device to move it forward.
Yeah, so we have this multi-layered cake here where, yeah, thank you for reminding us, Clay. Haman's literally in here to get Mordecai assassinated. But how quickly he forgets about that because his ego gets in the way. The king wants to honor Mordecai, but he also doesn't mention Mordecai's name. So Haman assumes that the king's talking about himself. So we're learning more about the king. What seems in character about the way the king is handling this based on the way he's handled other situations?
Yeah.
Because there's a character trait that's kind of been consistent so far that kind of leads to this situation. Did you all pick up on it?
Not quite straightforward.
Was it an intentional humiliation of Haman or what? No,
No.
no, okay.
Think about how the king goes about honoring Mordecai.
Yeah. Well,
The king says he asks he doesn't think about himself. He doesn't think, well, gosh, I should honor that person, and here's how I'm going to do it. He goes to his right hand person and says, what do you think would be a good way to honor somebody? I mean, the king is lacking imagination in many ways. He can't figure these things out.
or is he setting up Haman?
Well, the king would ask the first attendant who comes in. And today it just happens to be Haman. And I love the fact that he wants the king's horse and he wants the whole deal because he thinks he's going to be. It's just, yeah.
And there's really the irony in here because Haman is suggesting, which he thinks it's for himself, but it's what's going to be used to honor Mordecai.
Right. So, yeah, in this moment, we're seeing once again the king is kind of he rarely makes assertions himself. When Vashti didn't come when he said, he was like, what do I do? Courtiers, advisors, what do I do when the queen doesn't come? And he does what they say. And there's been other situations where people, look, things have happened, and he asks, what do I do? And he kind of, it's an interesting thing where this king is not, at least until this point, he has not been a very assertive king. When Haman says, hey, there's this group of people, They don't follow our laws. Can we kill them? He was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Here's my ring, do whatever. And he kind of offloads a lot of his thinking to the people around him. And so, like, once again, there's a situation where he's like, oh, shoot, I never honored that guy. But he doesn't have like an immediate idea of what that would be like.
Yeah, right. The king doesn't really have any stake in this. I mean, it doesn't make any difference who's going to get killed. Mordecai, Haman, it's not going to affect him. He
Yeah.
doesn't have to be horribly concerned other than worrying about maybe he should have done something to help their honor.
Yeah. Yeah, Clay?
Does the king at this point know about the gallows? I mean, that's what Haman was coming to tell him,
Well, he
but
apparently
he obviously doesn't know about it.
you would think
No.
someone would notice.
Was he?
Well, that's hyperbole though, the 75 or 83 or whatever, how many feet it is. Again, it's another.
It's a
we've had
big
some
number.
hyperbole. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be
Gary, what
really
were you
big.
gonna?
I'm not ready to give up on the idea that the king was not setting him up. The king was aware of this because it was uh, common knowledge that Mordecai was Jewish, and now Mordecai he wants to honor him. So I'm not so sure that the king might not have been just setting him up, let him dress him up and do the whole thing, thinking it's going to be himself. He's going to be the one being honored. And anyway, I'm not ready to give up on the king being smarter than what you are.
I will leave that open. I want us to talk. I remember that. We're going to talk about that next week because next week is when the second banquet happens, and we're going to see how the king reacts then. So some of this is getting used to the king to see how the king's attitude is about to change.
Okay.
So what I will say though is you're correct. The gallows have been built, but the king doesn't go outside his palace, and it's also been they were constructed in the middle of the night when the king was sleeping. So the king is likely unaware of the gallows. And if so, he might see the gallows constructed. He doesn't know why, because literally Haman was the messenger getting ready to tell him why he just built a really big gallows. So the king is likely oblivious to that. The one thing that I forget which one of you brought up that is interesting is the king does mention Mordecai the Jew. Like, the king seems to know that Mordecai's Jewish, which leads some people to ask, does the king remember the edict that Haman asked him to write? And there's a chance that, like, because we know they were drinking, because he gave all of the power and authority immediately to Haman, that he hasn't really connected the two thoughts. That there's this edict that has gone out targeting this group of people, and oh, Mordecai's a part of that group of people. So there may be another part where the king is kind of not the brightest bulb, or maybe just like he has so many things going on. He has so much going on in court that he's like between business and court cases and all that. He may not be connecting that Mordecai and the Jewish people are the same.
Right.
And that seems to be the commentary that the commentators in my Bible are talking about. It's like it looks like the king's not making this connection because the king does seem to know that Mordecai is Jewish.
Yeah, and you can say it wouldn't be hard for the king to say, "Hey, I'm the king." Mordecai's sort of right here. He reports to me this, and I can take care of him. I'm not worried about they're going to kill all the Jews. I'm going to say, well, don't kill him.
Mhm.
Right.
I don't think he has a picture of what that would look like anyway.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's not too astute.
Yeah. So one interesting detail, so Haman goes on and on about what he wishes to have happen. So he wants a robe that the king has worn. He wants to ride on a horse that the king has ridden on, and go through the city proclaiming his goodness. Um, but there's one phrase that struck me odd, and this is not important to the story, but it's interesting historical facts that I thought you all might be interested in. This is verse 8. Let a royal robe be brought, which the king has worn, and a horse that the king has ridden, with a royal crown on its head.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The, they're talking about the horse wearing a crown.
Yeah.
And I had to look this up because my notes are saying, yeah, we have depictions of horses, or like Persian depictions of horses wearing crowns. And I'm like, what in the world does that look like? So I looked it up. I don't know if you caught that at all, that we
I
have
do.
horses with crowns. Um,
Well,
Here we go.
okay.
So this is one Persian relief drawing. You can see some of the stylistic things that are common to the region. You have these very 2D reliefs. You get a very this like conical shaped beard, which you can also see in like Babylonian depictions, but the pointy hats, I believe, are one of the things that depicts that they are Persian rather than other things. But if you look over here,
Mhm.
there we go. This horse has like a little funny ponytail, which I don't know if that's what they're talking
Mhm.
about because there's the rest of the mane, but it has this little ponytail here. Oop, let me get this out of the way. Um, but then I found this other depiction where there seems to be something jingly on the top of these horses' heads. I don't know what this is, but this seems to be what they're talking about as a crown on the horses' heads. Because we have this one where once again we have these, I don't even know what they are. It looks like bells to me, but I am unsure. But yes, the horses are the ones wearing the crown, not the rider, which I just found amusing.
Yeah.
So, let me see, go back. Zooming out, this is, I think, one of the clearer depictions. You have like the specialty horse. Looks like this guy is walking, not riding, but then you have people following after with tools and things. And so that's probably a similar depiction as to what Haman is envisioning. Yeah, Larry?
Okay. Apparently, it's very important that he gets one of the king's horses.
Yes.
Okay. And having this crown on the horse indicates, indeed, yes, this is one of the king's horses. It's not that the horse is king, it's
Yeah.
just this horse belongs to the king. It's a
Mm-hmm.
badge of authenticity.
Ah, okay. I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah, that's a good point. Like you, even though we would think of it as like the king's hand-me-downs, this is like the king has dressed me up as second to him. Because that
Mhm.
seems to be Haman's idea, is like make him
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
second most important person in the land, up into even wearing royal robes.
Yeah.
And then the thing that just makes it a little bit worse for Haman is not only does the king say, great idea, love it, do all of that, for Mordecai, who evidently the king doesn't know that these two people do not get along, but it's Haman himself who has to bring the robe and go through the city proclaiming Mordecai's goodness. So what do you think of that as like cosmic punishment, or just like ultimate story reversal? He was there to get Mordecai killed, and now he has to go through the city talking about how good he is with the treatment he thought he was getting.
I think the
But
interesting,
that's just spreading it on thick. I mean, it is.
No, it's
This,
making it a great story.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No,
I love
you're
it.
right. I mean, it's it's exaggerated to a point, and we also see that Mordecai or Haman is a person who just eats this kind of stuff up. I mean, oh gosh, what am I gonna do? Oh, royal robes. And then for the switch to take place, it's like you knocked him down. I mean,
yeah. But it's
you couldn't have
interesting.
kicked him
Haman
further.
had, yeah, but Haman has no response. I mean, nothing, nothing said about what did Haman do? It's almost as if he said, well, okay, King, if that's what you want, I'll go do it.
And
He
he does.
certainly didn't feel that way.
Somehow I don't think Mordecai cares a lot about that stuff. He doesn't.
Yeah.
It's important to Haman, but not to Mordecai. I mean,
Mhm.
okay, it's nice to be acknowledged, but he's a simple man.
Mhm.
So there's the other piece of irony. Yeah, this is not a reward that Mordecai is after. Yeah, Gary?
Well, another interesting thing is Haman, in his description of how you recognize and honor this individual, is you have the king's most noble prince to pull this off.
Okay.
He put himself in that position. He
Yeah.
didn't need it to be that, but that's
Okay. Okay.
That
the irony.
great detail to pull out. Yeah, he could have just said and an official, but no, you have to have the greatest official, which means that like Haman put
Okay.
himself
Okay.
in that
That's
job.
me.
He
So
put
I
himself
don't think
in the job
Haman
doing
can say no is the thing. Like,
Right. No.
so with the big reversal where the humble Jewish man who did not ask for a reward, who saved the king just because it was the right thing to do, gets honored. Even while this is probably not what Mordecai would want, and the arrogant guy who wants all of this gets humbled. Can you all think of other places in the Bible that talk about this kind of reversal? Because this is, in some ways, this is a very good Jewish story for a few reasons, but we also see a little bit of this appear in the Gospels. Can you all think of any corollaries in this one?
Well,
Well,
and the first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
Uh-huh.
yeah. Well, there's also the story. Which was it? Jacob just in the pit, or Joseph? Which one? Which one ends up being the Pharaoh's right hand man?
Oh, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. There we go.
Yes,
Uh,
he's thrown into the pit. They expect him to die, and then he's rescued and becomes somebody very, very important. So that's a unexpected kind of thing, elevated.
So
And the
what?
story of Lazarus in the New Testament, the
Oh yeah,
poor
say more about
man.
that one.
That's all I can say. No,
Okay.
mhm.
no, he walks by him every day, and then
Mm-hmm.
he wants to be fed, and the poor
Yeah.
man said, "You had it good in your life. Too bad."
Uh, why I say more is most people think of Lazarus as the brother of
Oh,
Mary and Martha. There is a
oh,
parable of Lazarus and the rich man, and the rich man ignores this poor man Lazarus, who's like sitting at the city gate, and like dogs are literally licking his oozing wounds. But when they die, the rich man is tormented in the underworld, and Lazarus goes up and is at the right hand of Moses. And so once again, it's a role reversal situation. Anything else? So there's a proverb about this, and I had to look it up where it was. But this is one of those where it's like it lays it on thick once again. Like, this is a good Jewish story. Even if God's not mentioned, this is a Jewish story. This is from Proverbs 25, starting in verse 6. Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence, or stand at a place of the great. For it is better to be told, come up here, than to be put lower in the presence of a noble. So
I think it's in Luke. Jesus tells that story. Doesn't he tell it as a story in, I don't know if it's Luke. When you go to a place, don't go for the top seat. Sit and wait until somebody says to you, you come up here.
Yeah, Jesus goes to a dinner where all the Pharisees are fighting of who gets to sit next to the guest of honor, and Jesus says, don't do that. Sit at the back of the table, because it's far better for the host to be like, no, 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 no. Come forward, sit at the front of the table. You here, you go sit in that seat down there. You're not as important. So yeah, this proverb gets then brought back to Jesus. In Luke, I'm going to assume you're right that it's in Luke, but we see this role reversal again in this story. There's one more time where we see some big role reversals. Oh yeah, Larry?
I was thinking it's the parable about the rich man that gives his kids so many talents, and the servants, and so is that the obverse of this, where the guy that ends up with all the talents is the one that accumulated the most?
So that one is following a different line of logic. In some ways, it is a counterbalance. I can see where you got that. The idea there is that don't be scared of using what you have. Use your resources to further things is the general message that most people take from that one. Is like, if you're scared and you keep everything to yourself, you're gonna have less.
You're not gonna, yeah.
Right. But the last role reversal story, which is also a very Jewish sounding one, which is why we get this trope in a lot of Jewish stories of like the one that you don't expect, the underdog gets ahead, is Jacob. I know we were saying Joseph, but also Jacob. The technically the younger of the twin brothers, who gets the blessing, who gets the inheritance.
Yeah, yeah.
He in a way is also seen as the role reversal because he is technically second, but through trickery and other things, he comes out by his cunning and wisdom and patience, he comes out ahead of his brother. So the fact that Mordecai is kind of just letting the situation play out and he's coming out ahead.
And it seems kind of.
And it seems kind of what? Anyways, so that is something that is a Jewish trope that makes this story feel very Jewish, is this role reversal here.
This is a question.
Yeah.
During the Holocaust, how did people deal with this story?
That's
or did they?
I have no idea. The story that I hear when people talk about the Holocaust and looking at the Hebrew scriptures, the story that I hear it compared to is nothing this late, but the sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham, or the near sacrifice. And the understanding is that is the time where God did not withhold the knife, where
Wow.
it was no longer the near sacrifice of Isaac. The Holocaust is understood as the sacrifice of Isaac.
Oh my. Okay.
That is the only story that I know of. That would be a question for Rabbi Elisha at a different time. Because yeah, even the story of Hanukkah and this story in Passover is that trope that I told you. They tried to kill us, they didn't succeed. Let's
Right.
eat.
Yeah.
But the Holocaust doesn't follow that. So
No.
I'm not well versed enough to know how the Jewish community deals with that.
Yeah.
But to finish out this chapter for today, after Haman dresses Mordecai up, puts him on the horse, parades him around town singing about how great Mordecai is, he returns Mordecai to the king's gate. Haman hurries to his house, mourning and with his head covered. And Haman tells his wife and all of his friends what happened to him, and his advisors and his wife said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom your downfall has begun, is of the Jewish people, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him." And the last verse, which my Bible groups with the next chapter. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman off. So what do you take of this final thing where Mordecai hurries home? He's like covering his head. He's embarrassed. He doesn't want to be seen. And he's greeted with a wife and his friends with that message. What do you all make of it?
That's another.
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
I was just saying it's another irony where he knows that he's probably going to be killed, or his wife thinks that, and he still has the what he originally thought was a honor to eat dinner with Esther, the king.
Yeah, Clay?
Well, and now he has to go to it. He's been taken in haste to this banquet. He can't stay home and hide with his head covered.
Right.
He's being ushered right off to it.
Yeah. Nothing like going to a festive event when you feel down in the dumps.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting they tell him the truth. His friends and Zeresh, they don't mince words. You're in trouble.
Uh-huh. This doesn't look good for you.
You know, it seems that when something goes bad for somebody, it's always they get killed. They don't just get demoted.
An interesting thing too, the contrast of Mordecai returns to the gate, and so he's comfortable. He's back where he's always been. And Haman, is going to this big fancy party, and he doesn't want to go there. The clash has already occurred, a different treatment or their position at that time personally.
Right. So it's interesting that when the chapter starts, theoretically, Haman is in his nice finery because he's a court official. He's high up. He's the king's second in command. So he looks really nice. Mordecai is likely still in sackcloth and ashes. Like, And then you have the slow reversal of the first thing. Okay, Mordecai, king's command, you have to take off the sackcloth, and you are literally going to be put into royal robes. Nothing like you can't get a bigger contrast than taking off a potato sack and putting on Louis Vuitton. Like, clean him up, make him look nice, ride him around town, and then it's Haman who leaves. So, like, yes, they leave Mordecai by the gate where he's comfortable, now in royal finery, which, like we said, this is not like a desolate place. This is not like someone just like hanging out near someone's front gate. This is like a city center. So he drops Mordecai off in royal finery when he left in the worst clothes you can imagine. And then Haman leaves with head covered in like the most mourning that like he can muster. So yeah, there is a very big visual reversal happening here. But you have the other detail, which is meant to conjure an image. This is very intentional. He leaves and tries to hide in his house, covering his head.
What?
What foreshadowing can we expect with this? This is not subtle.
Yeah.
Haman is covering his head.
He's going to lose his head very shortly.
Gonna lose his head, yeah. That's what,
Yep. There's times this story is great, but it is not always subtle. But yes, he can't hide at home. He can't lick his wounds. He doesn't have time to come up with another scheme. He is immediately whisked away to this other banquet that should feel like putting him on top of the world, but it doesn't.
Mhm.
So folks, that is the end of today's chapter. What are your thoughts this far in the story? Well,
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
yep.
That it's a good moral story. The bad people are going to be punished, and
yes.
and the good people are going to be okay.
Elevated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good to have a story where the good guys win.
Yeah.
I know we're not quite at
I think, doesn't Mordecai?
Sue, what were you gonna say? Does Mordecai?
I was just remembering that when Mordecai gets off, doesn't he at one point get off his horse and go? He just goes back to doing what he was doing before, which was standing by the gate. So it wasn't important to him. I mean, it was nice. It was nice, but not that, you know. I'm sure he wants to save his people.
Yeah. Have you all ever had that where you get an honor that you actually isn't valuable to you? Or you get recognized in a way that is just like, oh, okay.
Well, I know I was thinking this is a very loose association. When Obama got the Nobel Prize, and he thought, this is embarrassing. He was, yeah, it was. I don't think it was important to him, and he certainly hadn't really done much. So, and Mordecai actually did something. I don't know why that floated into my mind.
So if you were Mordecai, what would you want to be your reward? If it's not royal finery, what do you think would have actually mattered?
Yeah. Well, he wants that edict reversed.
Right. He wants to save his people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the story doesn't say anything about what Mordecai thought about all this.
It doesn't.
They just dropped him off at the gate again. There
Mm.
he is in his finery.
How do you think people would have responded though? I'm curious, just like working through this, because we have the time. Um, if people want to reward someone with what would be culturally valuable to reward someone with, and instead someone says, no, 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 I don't want the cultural symbols of prestige. I want social change. How does that get perceived by the general populace when
Well,
someone does that?
they could have looked at Mordecai and said, well, he got some new clothes,
Yeah.
but that was his reward. That's all that's going to happen.
But I would think that the Jews that knew about this proclamation, and then what happened to Mordecai being all dressed up in this fine clothing, and I think they would be, that would be very disturbing. There's a great conflict here, and they'd be pretty upset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this king wrote our death warrant, and here's this high up official riding around looking like the king that just signed our death warrant. What's going on here?
The king doesn't seem to be connecting the dots either.
Nope. It just is making me think because I was listening to the NPR morning report, and one of the things that was interesting that was being talked about was American Olympians and their reaction to getting awards and some of the things they've been saying, because that in some ways that's an award that wider society says is very valuable. And some of them have come out with a like, this feels weird right now. And some people's response has been, your job isn't to talk politics, just accept the award and be grateful. And it's interesting how that has it's not a one-to-one to this situation, but it's like, what would have happened if, like, while on the horse, Mordecai's like, the king's trying to kill us. The king's trying to kill us. Like, people would not have responded well. But at the same time, it feels weird for Mordecai to be silent. I don't know.
He's trusting Esther, I think, to make things change. Yeah.
Yeah, the name of the book is Esther, so we can't forget that.
And for a patriarchal society, that is really saying something. That Mordecai is depending on Esther.
Yeah.
But you know, the last part of this sentence in verse 13 is interesting. If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of the Jewish people, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him. And that's the wife of Haman's talking.
Yeah, Mordecai is still seen as the primary adversary of Haman.
Yeah.
So the question would be why? Why is Mordecai still seen as the primary adversary here?
Well, he's a really good person, and Haman is a really evil person who only out for himself. But Huh,
The simple answer is no one knows Esther is Jewish.
that's right.
They
Mhm.
don't know that she is a player in the game,
Mhm.
that her identity is kind of kept secret and close, and she has not revealed this yet. We will get her reveal next time. And so more great reversals are going to happen, but you will see there's a little bit of information. If you know the story, you kind of can read some of it backwards into it. But some of the details where I'm like, no, that's not quite the dynamics, those are going to come out next week. So next week is the big banquet where Esther is going to finally come queen. Come clean about who she is, what she wants. She's going to ask the king, and Haman's going to be right there to be in the room at the banquet. So that's the big reveal is next time. So
I think
Okay.
I think on B's point about that, there's a little bit of like saying Jewish people are above all people. I mean, that's what Zer says. If he's Jewish, you better watch out. Let's see. You will not prevail against him, which is a great reversal in Judaism. To be, I mean, except for King David, I mean, for the most part, and later stories of pogroms and so on. Well, I mean, this is never again repeated, really.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's so off from what the story goes, that everybody knows about the edict, that all the Jews are going to be destroyed. So why does she come up with this?
Mhm.
Well, all of a sudden, Mordecai's got the king's clothes and his horse. That doesn't look very that doesn't look very good for Haman.
Mhm.
So there's a few factors that might be playing into this kind of a comment. One is, do you all remember what Haman's background is? Where does he come from ancestrally?
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's the bad guys from the way back in the Exodus,
Yep, he is.
Yeah, when they're on their way to the promised land.
right?
And those people didn't want to let them go into their territory. Is that the one?
Yep,
Okay.
he is part of the Amorites. So he is
Yeah.
not Persian himself. He is a diaspored person as well.
Hmm.
There is a non-zero chance. I would have to look up I don't know if we can tell this, but if where the name Zeresh comes from, she also might be an Amorite, which means they grew up with the stories of the Jewish people from the other perspective.
Yeah.
And we have the stories from the winner's perspective, and evidently the Jewish people whooped them when they tried to attack. And even when they were just a small, scrappy band of slaves in the desert, they were able to beat the Amorite armies, which created this blood feud that exists to this day. Because remember, Haman's not bowing to Mordecai is not bowing to Haman because he's Jewish, meaning that this is likely more of an ethnic grudge match.
Oh.
So his wife is saying, wait, this guy's a Jew? You took on a battle with a Jewish guy? Don't you remember all the stories where their armies beat us? Don't you remember all the stories where they were the underdog and they still won? That wasn't a good idea, hun. So it might be a recall to Jewish history.
Yeah, but wasn't it her idea to hang Mordecai?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh.
Yep. So,
Thanks. That helped explain that for me.
Well, folks, we are now at time, so shall we pray ourselves out for today? All right. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, in the scripture today, we read about great reversals, about how humble people are raised up for doing good, and we remember Jesus's teachings, how the first will be last and the last will be first, and how those who try to give themselves positions of honor will be humbled, and yet the humble will be raised up. We hold to these ideals, God, but we struggle to see them in the world. For the world still values the powerful and the rich. We still value things like honor and prestige and awards, when we should honor those who protect, those who try to keep the community safe, those who are building bonds, those who are building bridges to understand people that are unlike themselves. So help us lift up the Mordecais in the world who do not seek after awards and recognition, but just seek after the welfare of your people. Help us be Esthers and Mordecais in the world so we may be bold when oppression comes and we see people being put down for no reason other than their place of origin. And God, in the midst of it all, we trust that you are working behind the scenes to make all that needs to happen happen. That sleepless nights will be met with new truths, and that advice given will be followed when it is done in truth and honesty. We pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right. Have a lovely
Chris.
afternoon.
Yeah. And B, if you can stay on.
Yes.
Chris.
Gotta hold them on.
All right, give me just a moment.
Almost there.
I have to make you the host first, and then we're also gonna stop recording. That's the other part that we need.
Right, and I knew